All right, how's it going, folks? It's been a while since I did a video, probably 2 or 3 years right after I had gotten married. Uh, Finally decided to do one. This one, of course, is on Nick Cannon. Who else have they said? David Banner. And David Banner, I used to listen to a long time ago before I ever got married. That was like 5, 6 years ago. And you get on that YouTube rabbit hole, right? And it led to Dr. Umar Johnson. Listen to a lot of that stuff just because you've always got to be able to get someone else's perspective on life, right? And the great thing is, we've all gone through different experiences in this world, so we're always going to see things differently. But in reality, once you get to talk with other people, you'll understand that it's like the same journey, which, I mean, common sense, but unfortunately we don't understand that. Which also led me to watching a lot of Killer Mike videos, which I liked as well. Uh, but since I'm more of an instigator, like even in real life, I always try to, you know, find a way to argue with someone, or they always say, or have a conversation, however you want to put it. But they always say never talk about sex, religion, and politics. And I always tell people, well, those are the only things I like to talk about because those are the things that run the world, right? Those are the main topics. And as of right now, when I'm making this video, the world's gone really crazy since I made my last video in probably 17 or 18. But so I grew up doing landscaping. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with this. And for that, I'm going to talk more about like what I used to hear David Banner say. And once again, this is all just like playing devil's advocate. That's where I'm going at with this. Because I always used to hear David Banner say, like, our people, our hair grows up towards the sun, towards the power of the universe, whatever, because, and white people or other races, their hair grows down towards the earth. That goes to show that we were meant for this planet. And I'm just like, I don't know. It sounds freaking weird to me. I don't understand it. And it took me a while to think. And it's like, well, coming from a landscaper's perspective, because I've done landscaping a majority of my life. And in doing that as well, I have been on the maintenance side of things where you're cutting grass, planting trees, doing maintenance at HOAs and apartment complexes and things like that. And it's like, well, what do you think? The natural cycle of the seasons, the leaves fall off of trees to the ground, which I guess you could say would be the equivalent of other races' hair. And what does it do? It fertilizes the ground, right? It fertilizes the ground. Same with pine trees. The pine needles fall down and it gives insulation to the roots to help protect the tree. Also, if you ever read anything about mowing a lawn, the best thing they do, I remember the company that I was working for, they put me in charge of the maintenance division, and it was like, we're doing huge, like the equivalent of like baseball fields, like huge parks, and we're gathering all the grass clippings. So we'd have to drive from one project back to the shop to dump our grass just to drive back, because we were literally mowing like parks that would be the size of like little league soccer fields or something like that, or like even a little league baseball field. But this thing would be the size of like 6 of them. And it's like, seriously, we're collecting this grass? Like, this is ridiculous. I'd have to send a driver back. So one day I was just like, we're not collecting the grass, right? I'm not doing this anymore. This is a waste of our time. Unless it was like HOA homes or model homes that we would do in new developed areas, then of course our houses, then we would do that. But HOAs, I stopped doing that. Like, that was my executive decision. Even the head owner was like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm not collecting this. Like, this is a waste of time. You can't even tell. Then we start taking these best management practice courses that they used to do at the expo shows here. And it's like, oh yeah, you never want to collect grass. Same thing. Why? Because you cut that grass, it falls back in, it fertilizes itself. So it's like, we're all a part of this planet, right? It doesn't matter which direction my hair goes. I guess if you want to say that, You're like a tree. Yours grows up towards the sun, like a plant, right? But in the fall, the leaves fall down, fertilize the ground. Like white people are, you know, supposed to be here as well with their hair. Our hair comes down, fertilizes the ground, if you want to go with that analogy that he was doing. So I don't understand that argument, right? But like I said, I see the world differently. I come from a landscaping background, and there's always, I've said this with my wife a while back, there's always, especially nowadays with the internet, there's always something that's going to support your claim. There's always something that's going to go against someone else's claim. The difference is, are you living the lifestyle that you portray? That's the main thing, right? And then the Nick Cannon thing that just came out, like, oh, their skin was white, they were savages because the sun would deteriorate them, and don't understand it. It's freaking weird to me. You know, they've come from that harsh environment, so they're killers and savages, and it's like, oh, I don't know. Like, I know. So for those who don't know, I'm a halfie. I'm half Hispanic, Indian, whatever. My dad's side's from Germany, whatever. I'm a mutt, right? That's why my skin is a little bit, people are like, oh, you're not white, but you're not, like, when, you know, I tan really well. When I was landscaping, I was really dark. And that's probably those genes coming in and being able to, you know, have that nice tan, versus there are a lot of white folks where, you know, they can't even see the sun because they just fry. But so I don't know. I know I'm from where I live here in Colorado. Like, I enjoy the winter. Like, it doesn't make me, I enjoy it. I enjoy the cold. There are a lot of people, like, there's even a freaking snowboarding company called Never Summer, right? Like, it doesn't make you a savage. It doesn't make you anything. Like, doesn't make you hate people or be angry at people because that's where you're from. It's like, I don't understand that. That's just confusing to me. I like the winter. I don't like it. I don't hate it. Same with summer. I don't like it. I don't hate it. It's whatever. You just deal with it. So I don't understand this whole point. Like, they could have came out of Asia and those cold areas anytime. They don't come because they're grumpy and upset that what you have is something that they don't. And I guess if it is, it has nothing to do with your race. They're not racist. They're someone who is just greedy and wants the resources that you have. It has nothing to do with the fact that they come from those climates, and those climates make you a worse person, right? That'd be like saying anybody that lives in Alaska or Canada are horrible people. But when you come down to it, everybody's like, oh, everybody in Canada is so nice. It's like, so I don't know. Or the skin debate, right? That one was a funny one. I heard Nick Cannon say, and it was like, yeah, you know, they realized that that's how they knew about genetics and genes, because when a white person, and their words was, you know, they raped the black people and they realized that the baby became lighter or darker. It's like, or the dark baby became lighter. Like, either way, it doesn't matter, right? Either way, when you mix, your baby's not going to come out either as dark or as light as you were when you're mixing with a Hispanic race or a black person. Like, it's never going to be the same, right? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. That could go either way, right? That could literally go either way. My wife is a good example. She's Hispanic, Mexican. Her parents are both fairly dark. Her brother is really dark, and my wife is light skinned. But then if you get her in the sun, she tans like that, like dark, like her brother is dark. And same with our son we just had. Like, he's fairly light. He's like me. He's a little darker than me like this normally, but you get him in the sun, like when we take him for walks, we have him in a stroller, and he has his legs shown. His legs are dark like her brother. So it's like, that can go either way. I don't understand that. And like I said, I'm always playing devil advocate. So it was this whole thing about Nick Cannon said about albinos, right? So that means that the white person is a genetic defect because of there being an albino, and black people are the superior race because two blacks can make a white but whites can't make a black baby, which is confusing. I guess in some way it kind of makes sense because, well, yeah, two white people can't make a black baby. Um, but I don't know. I guess you could call that a genetic defect. But what if we go like into um, like animals, right? They say like more purebred animals, or even when we as humans inbreed enough, you end up having a genetic defect. Like the dogs have genetic defects. Other humans, they say, can come out with some form of mental issues or whatever, right? So it's like, well, maybe it's too pure. Maybe that's a cause of inbreeding. I don't know. Like, I'm not saying that, but it's like, or you can flip the script of like, oh, well, maybe, once again, this is not my belief. I'm just saying, playing devil's advocate. Maybe it's that concept of, oh, well, maybe black people are savages and they don't like other races. So God made it to where they can make an albino, and now you have to love a white person because now it's your child. Like, it can go either way. So I don't understand it. It's confusing to me. I agree with a lot of the people out there where it's like hate is breeding hate. Like, and I agree 100% with what David Banner says and Nick Cannon says. Like, I'm a halfie because my dad, out of his brothers and sisters, was the only one to marry a non-white person. Right? And that doesn't mean that my other aunts and uncles are horrible because they married white people and they didn't decide to go with a Hispanic, or it doesn't matter. I don't care about that. You date who you're attracted to, right? Marry who you're attracted to. It is what it is. It doesn't bother me. But I lost my train of thought there. But yeah, I'm not saying I agree with them. Like, I agree you should. Like, I always joke that I'm gonna push my kids, who are now like 60 to 75% Hispanic, to marry Hispanics. Like, I'm going to push my kids to do that, right? And I always say it this way because I have a German last name. I think it's going to be awesome because my side, and this is a difference in like family history as well, and how you view the world, I guess I should say. My grandparents on my mother's side, fluent in Spanish. My mom's aunt and uncles, their brothers and sisters, all fluent in Spanish. At church, they all sung in Spanish. They were the church choir. My mom's aunt and uncles, my grandparents' brothers and sisters all spoke Spanish. From that lineage of my grandparents down, nobody speaks Spanish. They didn't teach anybody. They said, we're Americans. Now you're going to speak English, plain and simple. That's why I don't know Spanish. I know Spanish, my little bit of Spanish, because I took it in school and I did landscaping forever. So you're always around Mexican guys. So I was able to still use the Spanish that I had. So I still have what little I have. My wife's side, it's like a lot of them speak Spanish. You go over there, they're right in the middle of conversations. Family speaking Spanish. Her parents, fluent in Spanish. So it's like, that's just the different type of cultures. They're like, her family was like, no, we're going to speak Spanish. We're going to teach you. My mother-in-law always jokes about how they were trying to teach my wife and her brother Spanish, and they would complain, and they didn't want it. I don't care. So they don't know it, right? That's fine. But that's just the difference of cultures in that aspect. My mother's side Hispanic, you're not learning Spanish. The other side, they're trying to carry on that tradition. So it's all on how you see it that way too. Either way, it's not good or bad. Personally, I wish my Spanish was better, and I wish my wife knew it, and I want my son to know it, and my kids to know it. My mom also said too, when she worked in customer service, she's like, if I knew Spanish, I'd be making like $5 an hour more. It's always good just to know another language in general. But no, I agree with them wholeheartedly. I want my kids to marry Hispanics because I think it's going to be funny if my family I don't know, if they were any bit of racist in the past, never were towards me, everything like that. But if they were, I think it would be hilarious because if you go right now, none of the other males on my dad's side that have the last name Werner are going to have kids anytime soon. Doesn't look like it. Looks like it's not in the future. I'm the only one. And for me, I'm always like, I think it would be badass if 35 years from now, there's this whole family of Mexican Hispanics, and their last name is Werner, a German name. So I always joke around, and I'm like, that's why I want my kids to marry Hispanics, because I want to look around, it'll be all these Mexican people, and their last name will be Werner. I think that'll be hilarious. Then it'd be even more funny if my family side was racist, and it's like, look, the only lineage you have now is of Hispanic descent. I think that would be hilarious. But going back on that with the Killer Mike thing, that's why I think he always said, always befriend someone that's a different race of you, a different religious perspective of you, viewpoint, a different political viewpoint. And you need to be able to talk about these things. Because just like I've said, like coming from that landscaping background, I think I have valid points that can refute those things. But that's because I come from a different expertise, or expertise, because I'm an expert in my life and the things that I've known and the research I've done. So it's like, it only makes sense to me looking at it that way. And I think that's the problem the world's had, and I've heard it said before, the problem is we're trying to specialize in everything, not understanding that everything comes full circle and everything is one, right? It's like, that's why we can't get medicine right. That's why we can't get, mental illnesses right, because it's more than just like, oh, you need to take this pill. It's like, well, no, in reality, are you getting enough sun? Are you eating enough of the right foods? Are you exercising enough? Are you reading enough? It's like, are you doing all of these things to make you a well-rounded person? It's that same concept if you're ever in the trade business of anything. Like, I did landscaping the majority of my life, but I did framing for a little bit. I'm in the restaurant business now. I do all these things around my house. It's that same concept of jack of all trades, and it's jack of all trades, and what's the other saying? Like, jack of all trades. I think it might just be jack of all trades, master of none, right? Because you're always learning. You're never going to be. You're always going to be wrong in some aspect, and you need to stop being hard-headed and always thinking you're right and being able to have these conversations. Unfortunately, the world we live in now, you're not able to have these conversations because everybody wants to get all upset and butthurt about everything. That's the unfortunate thing. Where else is I going? The Nick Cannon, Savage, Killer Mike. But where I agree with Bruce Banner as well, another thing is, and I think it's, he's like, black people should buy from black people, keep the money in the community, blah, blah. And I agree with that. But that's where I tell people, like, okay, so does that make me like a religious phobe, I guess it would be, because it's not more like now the big term is like Islamophobe, but like, or a Hindu phobe. Like, I've never heard that, but for me, right, that's the great thing about religion. It doesn't have race, right? Because for me, being a Catholic Christian, there are black Catholics, Asian Catholics, white Catholics, Mexican Catholics. So for me, I agree with that though, but in the Catholic aspect, I want to give my money to other Catholic businesses. I don't know any, but I just have some friends that I went to church with. But it's like, yeah, if I knew people that were in business strictly as Catholics, I would only use that. So does that make me a religious phobe of this religion, that religion, or whatever, or a ist, whatever the equivalent of like a racist is, but I don't know what the term exactly would be for religion. But it's like, well, no, if I have the choice to go with a Hindu that has the same company, or a Muslim that has the same company versus a Catholic, well, for me, I would rather support the Catholic guy. I don't care, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, I don't care what his race is, but I do care what his religion is. So on David Banner's whole thing of like, oh, it needs to be in the black community. Oh, that's fine. That's your thing, and I don't care about it. But that means for me, I like that. I appreciate that same concept of same thing. I want my kids to marry into the Catholic faith. I want to support Catholic businesses. Doesn't mean I'm a bad person. Doesn't mean I dislike the other person. That's just the way that I prefer to spend my money. You vote with your dollar, right? So, just some little things on that. I definitely encourage you to watch David Banner's interviews, watch Dr. Umar Johnson's interviews, watch Professor Griff. Like, that's who he was. Nick Cannon was interviewing at the time. I watched a lot of Professor Griff too. And there's this other light-skinned black guy that I didn't watch him much, but definitely Professor Griff, Banner, Umar Johnson. The Nick Cannon class, right after all that happened, he had to apologize. Cannon's class, I had only discovered that podcast like 3 weeks before the whole Professor Griff one went down. And I like Professor Griff too. He's great, whatever. But that's because I also like seeing someone else's point of view. So I'm going to leave it at that. This video went way too long, but yeah, just something to think about for yourself in doing those things. Never be afraid of a different perspective. Always be looking for what you believe is truth. Once again, when it comes to me, it's the Catholic faith is the truth, right? There's nothing better than that. And I've said this before, I'm missing one of the books. I'm looking at it right now. One of the books is upstairs, but it's like, there's one more book that's this same, part of this same volume, right? This is the Summa Thessalonica Theologica. There's one more book this same size, and this is by St. Thomas Aquinas, right? Who was alive in like the 1200s. And according to him, all these books you saw, this was the beginner's guide to Christianity, to Catholicism. All these books. This was his beginner's guide. Plus one more, the beginner's guide to Christianity, because it's on every topic you can think of. Right? So that was the beginner's guide. So it's one of those things where it's like, oh, it's not just believe in God, believe in Jesus, and everything's okay. Like back in the 1200s, 1300s, I can't remember, that was what he considered to be the beginner's guide to Christianity, Catholicism. Something to think about. That's expensive, tell you the truth. I bought it, this set, and I've barely even skimmed it, but this set was like $200. So $50 a book, but maybe $175. Something to think about. If you're here to the end, there's one person I just wanted to say thank you. Whoever you were, you left a comment like a year ago probably about how you missed watching my videos, because you said you watched them a lot. So whoever you are, I don't remember the name. It was in a comment though. That's literally stuck in my mind ever since I read it when I got that notification. And if it wasn't for you, I probably wouldn't even have ever made this video. Getting me back on track. I don't have many views anyways, but it allows me to get things off my chest and hopefully help somebody. Obviously it helped you. But I wanted to say thank you for leaving that comment. So there we go. Hopefully I'll do something else. Who knows when I'm even going to post this video. But thank you for tuning in.